the latest spelljammer sourcebook, those characters with a background as an Astral Drifter have a table they can roll on to determine which divine being they had an encounter with, but they don't provide any details as to who those gods are, so here's a quick expansion on that information for those who would like to know more. I will list them in order they appear on the table, and timestamps on the video description can be used to skip to the specific god you wish to know more about immediately. On the table, most of the gods are of intermediate level, which means they are one rank below that of a greater god and have at least hundreds of thousands of worshippers. Anyway, let's get started. Number 1. Corellon, god of art and magic, chaotic good. James M. Ward created Corellon Lorathian for the sourcebook Deities and Demigods published in 1980. Ruler of Arvandor, first of the Seldarine pantheon and creator of the elves, Corellon Lorathian is a greater god and has enormous powers of perception, able to perceive of and operate in multiple locations on multiple planes of existence at once, and able to manifest lesser physical forms in order to operate in the prime material plane without disrupting reality and destroying the minds of any worlds and life forms he interacts with. Most often found manifesting on the outer plane of Arborea, as a greater god, Corellon has supreme powers over his portfolios of art and magic, which means Corellon can simply overrule any activity within those portfolios attempted by any lesser being, and will be fully aware of any acts of creation or destruction involving any aspect of those portfolios on any plane of existence that Corellon is active in. Corellon has no biological sex, but is referred to by the elves as their father. Thus he is always referred to in the male pronouns of he, him. Even if he chooses to manifest in a female form, his normal appearance is that of an exceptionally beautiful androgynous male elf. While Corellon is a force for good generally, and most elves believe that he represents the perfect state of elfdom, he does approve of the slaughter of orcs and drow, and is angered by any elf who makes use of the shadow weave form of magic. He also has a long list of enemies and has been complicit in historic acts of attempted genocide and mass murder by the elven race. On the world of Toril in realm space, as of 1379 on the Dale Reckoning calendar, a high magic ritual performed by Ireland Farlaghn transformed hundreds among those drow who were not tainted by Wendenai's blood, spoiler alert, most drow are descended from dark elven tieflings, or who followed Illustrae, back into dark elves, and Corellon thus permitted the souls of the newly transformed dark elves to enter his domain in Arvandor, paving a path of reconciliation. Finally, for their race, originally in the court of the Seldarine, the Dark Elves were considered to be the most beautiful of the elven subraces, and their goddess, who later became Lolth, was Corellon's wife. Corellon is a master of all traditional elven martial arts. He carries a longsword named Sahadrian, a longbow named Amlath Hana, with perfect accuracy over a mile, a powerful amulet of good, and a wand of exceptional power. He is immune to everything that inhibits his ability to move, causes wounds, or tampers with his mind, as well as all illusion spells, and it is normally impossible to hurt any of his physical forms without a magical weapon of at least +3 enchantment. Number 2. Tymora, god of good fortune, chaotic good. Mostly associated with the planet Toril in realm space for the Forgotten Realms setting, Tymora is both a goddess of the halfling pantheon and also a general goddess of the portfolio of good fortune and trickery, worshipped by most other races in one way or another. But she is actually the second incarnation of the luck goddess, after an event where the greater god Lathander attempted to reshape the faerun pantheon more in his own image, which destroyed or transmuted several gods at that time, leading to it being known as the Dawn Cataclysm. But it is poorly understood exactly what happened and how the original luck goddess named Tyche died and became both Tymora and her evil counterpart named Beshaba, goddess of misfortune. Both Tymora and Beshaba are intermediary deities. Not known to physically manifest all that often, Tymora typically manifests an avatar that appears as a tall, thin, almost boyish yet graceful maiden with long, flowing, unbound, platinum blonde or silver hair, a regal face, and blue-black eyes, but when manifesting for a specific race, she always appears as a member of that race. To the halflings, there is nothing particularly unified or consistent in their worship of this goddess, even down to the name they call her, so Tymora is more like a category of deity of good fortune, despite all of that worship ending up empowering the one goddess in practical effect. Tymora noticeably has a total lack of malice or vengeance in her heart. She is literally the better half of Tyche, full of good cheer, grace, and kindness. She is particularly adventurous, and an encounter with one of her avatars is bound to be very exciting indeed. Also, she is known to be very generous with her divine powers, so receiving a boon from a pleased Tymora is much more certain than with other gods. Scholars of the Outer Planes, notably the Rilmani, claim that no body of Tyche has been found in the regions of dead gods in the astral plane. Tymora is still actually Tyche, but she learned how to manifest as twin deities instead of dying. Number 3. Farlaghn, god of horizons and travel, neutral good. A well-known deity in the world of Earth in the Greyhawk setting, Farlaghn manifests most often as an elderly man, weathered from a life outdoors but with intense green eyes that sparkle with life. He wears unremarkable clothing and is very in tune with the prime material plane where he spends most of his time. Farlaghn is a patron of all those who would travel long distances, so if an astral wanderer has encountered him along the way, being on such a journey automatically will put you in this god's good graces. The faith of Farlaghn includes a library of folktales and fables which contain lessons. Many of them involve a wise old man and a young foolish man, often crossing a river or other difficult path. As such, encounters with this god can be very beneficial to those who are lost, stranded, or imprisoned somehow in the midst of their intended journey. Number 4. Istus, god of fate and destiny, neutral. Another deity of the world of Earth for the Greyhawk setting, the goddess of fate is callous and often unkind, with worshippers and clerics tending to be more stoic, cynical, and less inclined to ask their goddess for any favours, instead often relying on divination magic to discern what fate will bring. As a greater goddess, Istus has enormous powers of perception and can operate on multiple locations on multiple planes of existence at once, and she controls the portfolios of fate and destiny that are shared by many intermediary and lesser deities. So Hecate, who also appears on the random divine encounter table as well, would have to bow to the authority of Istus in regard to anything governed by the knowledge domain. Istus is very aloof and really only concerns herself with the fate of the multiverse, not the lives of other beings. She also has a lot to do with the mysterious realms within the deep ethereal, and also the demiplane of time. The very concept of a weave of magical energy is taken to extremes in the dogma of Istus, where all of reality is said to be connected by the web of fate, and there are deeper, far more fundamental layers than the fleeting flows of magic and the elements. Istus favours those who accept their fate with humility and hold honesty to be sacred. An encounter with Istus is very unpredictable. It could just be observing an avatar of the goddess involved in some activity that is completely unfathomable, or the keen attention of the goddess could be upon you due to some critical cosmic events that you know nothing about, resulting in you being transformed or transported instantly and for reasons that you are not privy to know about. 5. Nuada, god of war and warriors, neutral. This one is a bit of an odd choice, as Nuada is a figure from Irish mythology with some basis in historic events that have been confirmed by physical evidence. But there is a lot of overlap between Nuada of the Silver Arm, the British deity Nodens, the Roman deity Mars, the Welsh deity Lud of the Silver Hand, and the Norse deity Tyr, who is also a deity of the Forgotten Realms setting, so you can just use the stats and lore for Tyr if you so desire. Nuada was the mortal king of the mystical Irish ancestors called the Tuatha De Danann, who were equivalent to an Irish pantheon. There are many myths of the battles between the pantheon and the pre-existing inhabitants of Ireland, the Fomorians, including Balor of the One Eye, the people of Nemet, and the Firbolg. Ancient Celtic mythology is a pretty wild read on Wikipedia and is a great source of inspiration for epic Dungeons & Dragons adventures. Nuada's sword is a classic artifact, one of the 4 treasures of the Tuatha De Danann. Its name is Phineas. It glows brightly, and once drawn, nobody escapes from it or can resist it. An encounter with Nuada is a step into the wild and unpredictable legends of Celtic folklore, so expect heavy involvement with the Fey realm and some of the most powerful forces of light and dark in the realms of dream and fable. The very heart of parallel dimensions, imagination itself becomes manifest into reality. Number 6. Zivilyn, god of wisdom, neutral. Zivilyn is a major god of the Dragonlance campaign setting, so the origin is Krynn space and the planet Krynn. To quote from a Dragonlance wiki page, Zivilyn is a deity of wisdom, enlightenment, and insight. His realm is awareness, balance, and understanding. His branches reach into every time and place in the river of time, into the past and into the future. He exists in all times and places simultaneously, and is wisest of the gods. Zivilyn was called from beyond by the High God to serve as counselor to Corellon, to give insight to his mate Cheslev's instinct and to bear witness to the world and share his divine experience with mortals. Zivilyn opposes the consuming hatred by deities such as Sargonis and Tarkhesis, and the martial ambition of Kiri Jolith, but calls no god his enemy. Many believe that the World Tree is the physical manifestation of Zivilyn upon the world of Krynn. An encounter with an aspect of this powerful god could seem like a visit to the World Tree Yggdrasil, but of course far more fantastic, as time and space could be wildly distorted and actually take a wanderer forward or backward in time, to locations right across the whole prime material plane. So the Avatar is like a living and enormously aware planar nexus and repository of vast knowledge of historic, distant, and future events. A sage, basically. Number 7. Arawn, god of life and death, neutral evil. Long is the day and long is the night and long is the waiting of Arawn. Arawn is a god from Welsh folklore, and if you thought Norse gods got up to some high adventures, the legendary kings of Celtic myth were constantly up to crazy capers, and their folklore has loads of tall tales similar to the legendary feats of figures like Thor, Maui, and Heracles, who all embodied the best virtues and most admirable traits of mankind, according to the cultures they sprang from. So their folktales and deeds were the foundation of teaching ethics, morals, wisdom, and sneaky tricks to children, while providing entertaining yarns to tell around the fire on long nights in the common house. In Arthurian legend, the tales of the Green Knight and Sir Gawain mirror the legends of Arawn and Pushpen Arawn, Lord of Dyfed and husband of Rhiannon, whose tales make up the first branch of the 4 branches of the Mabinogi mythology. Welsh folklore was influenced by the culture of ancient Roman Empire in Britain, so again, lots of parallels and lots of great legends to draw on for inspiration. But an encounter with this god is again going to be heavily influenced by the Fae and the Shadowfell, primal power and some very cool ancient artifacts, as well as giant mystical pigs. For inspiration, I would go and binge read all of the Slain comics from Rebellion Comics, published around 20-something years ago, but wow, very good reading and stunning art. Pure Dungeon Master imagination fuel, that stuff. Number 8. Hecate, god of magic and moons, chaotic evil. In Dungeons & Dragons, Hecate is an interloper of abundance, magic, and moons that originated from ancient Greece, but left that place long ago to become a power in the multiverse. Her original form was that of a 3-headed, extremely attractive woman with scarlet nails and clothing, milk-white skin, and eyes that burned like embers. Her hair is always dark and lustrous in her various avatar forms. Widely regarded for her cutting wit and great eloquence, she is a goddess of abundance, magic, the moon, night, and crossroads, with an irrepressible and capricious nature. But she embodies the ideal of abundance without waste, so is not needlessly hedonistic, and yet she usually appears with twin spheres of annihilation flanking her, like the multiverse's most scary guard dogs. She is unusual among deities in that she has divine realms on 2 different planes of existence, one located in Hades on the layer of Pluton, and the other in the 9 hells of Baator on the layer of Menoros. But both of her realms have the same name. She is a bit of a power-hungry mercenary, always wheeling and dealing, selling her evil magical inventions to infernal powers in exchange for fresh souls to power her infernal machines in Menoros. But she is fickle and may get involved with some mortal adventurers just on a random whim because she's bored. As a historic example of how an encounter with mortals plays out, which occurred in approximately 1357 Dale Reckoning on the world of Toril and realm space, Hecate grew infatuated with the deity Enki, but at the time he was in a relationship with the Faerunian deity Lyra. Unwilling to let this get in her way, she cursed Lyra so that she could return no man's love and imprisoned her in a pleasure palace named Xanabar on an unnamed world. Hecate eventually lost the feelings she felt for Enki, but neglected to remove the curse she had placed on Lyra because she's selfish and evil. Later that same year, she sent her jester out to the World Serpent Inn to acquire some suitable adventurers to obtain her a hound from the Wild Hunt, wanting to crossbreed it with her hellhounds. As the adventurers were guided through the plains by the jester and got caught up on other transactions, they learned of Lyra's fate. They went on to free the goddess from her imprisonment, offering the captured hound to Hecate in return for her removing the curse. Number 9. Celestian, god of stars and wanderers, neutral. Another greyhawk setting deity, Celestian is a legit cosmic wanderer though. so could be encountered anywhere. He's one of the few powers worshipped on the Rock of Brawl, where he is also referred to as the Star Wanderer. Rarely manifesting in physical form, his appearance would be that of a humanoid that looks like space, all black and full of stars, probably carrying a magical short spear, but he's known to have a lot of different magical weapon types, and has potent powers gathered from all those star entities your spooky warlock gets their creepy spells from, so not to be messed with. He is very powerful on the astral plane itself. All of its realms, its colour pools, its epic secrets, its lost gods are known to him, and many astral residents believe that all good deities related to the stars are aspects of Celestian, no matter over which worlds they hold sway. So for them, Celestian is sort of a god mentor, not an overgod, but certainly one that has a lot of influence with a lot of different pantheons, and a very good relationship with a lot of different divine beings, even if his odd habits and interests keep him constantly on the move, seeking new experiences, new vistas, new realities. Celestian encounters will probably involve encounters with astral divas and other astral powers such as Anubis. On the world of Toril in realm space, Celestian played a significant role in the time of troubles there recently by agreeing to transport a now mortal WotC from Toril to the astral plane so that the overgod Ao would not discover her leaving. Her plan was to make her way from there back to the Outlands, but because of the machinations of Grast, she was instead trapped in the abyss for many years. Celestian had owed her a favour, which is why he agreed to her plan, but he refused to also transport her ally Lyra, whom he did not know. Initially, the worshippers of Ptah, the final god on this random table, and also worshippers of many astral travellers greatly outnumbered those of Celestian. However, towards the end of the 13th century DR in the world of Toril, though grey space itself was said to be dying, Celestian was beginning to gain so many new worshippers among the various planes of existence that some scholars postulated that he might soon be elevated to the power of a greater deity. Perhaps an encounter with him could involve this coming ascension and attempts by evil beings to thwart it somehow. Number 10. Ptah, god of knowledge and secrets. Ptah truly has a place on this table as a god of planet travel, known also as the opener of the ways and, to some religions, as the creator of the universe. By multiverse standards, Ptah is an intermediary deity, below the rank of a greater deity. Thus, Ptah can be summoned by greater deities and overgods such as Ao to perform services for them. An intermediate deity has at minimum hundreds of thousands of worshippers, but he may once have been a greater god of the Milharandi and Egyptian pantheon, and simply step down to let Ra take on his role. Long ago in Realm Space, home of the Forgotten Realm setting in the world of Toril, Ptah was summoned by Lord Ao and asked to carry a message to the deities on the home world of the Mulan people, who had been kidnapped from ancient Earth by the Imaskari Empire. Ptah invited them to create powerful avatars that could accompany him to Realm Space where their people had been taken, bypassing the barriers put up by the Imaskari. Most of them agreed to make the sacrifice and the journey, so Ptah led the way using an artifact known as the Beacon of Light. Thus the Milharandi and Untheric pantheons came to Toril, landing on what was later called the God's Watch Mountains. An encounter with Ptah is like a close brush with eternity. I would suggest binge watching some episodes of Moon Knight and watching some original Stargate SG-1 episodes to get that vibe and lots of inspiration for your game. And there we have it, a bit more depth of information for you to make use of in your game if you so desire. My name is AJ Pickett. I make videos about Dungeons & Dragons lore from every edition of the game. Thanks for listening, and special thanks if you share this video link widely to make sure the resource gets into the hands of anyone who wants to use it. And I'll be back with more for you very soon.